Hello and welcome to the Farm.One podcast. I'm CEO and founder Rob Lang, and I'm sitting here in our farm in Tribeca, and we're doing a new thing this week. We're interviewing from two different rooms. So I'm sitting down here in like the sub basement in, as you can see, a tiny little area where we germinate seeds. And I have a guest with me, which is Wat. And Wat is from Rawsome Treats, and she's sitting there in our main farm, as you'll see, surrounded by our herbs and flowers and that kind of thing. And I'm really excited to welcome her to the farm today. This is the first time we're doing this kind of interview, but I think it gives us a chance to, do a higher quality interview, get to know someone a little bit better. And we're going to be doing more and more of this local, sort of super local on the farm type interview. So I hope you enjoy it. And I'm really excited about our guest today because she's someone who we've been starting to work with, starting to collaborate with. And Wat and Rawsome Treats are offering a surprise for our members this week, which is this amazing cream cheese. And you can find out a little bit more about that. There'll be a link in the episode to that. But really, what she's doing with Rawsome Treats is amazing. I'm not going to spoil the whole surprise, but it's shop selling. They sell pies, they sell desserts, they sell even some savory items, the cream cheese that we discussed and other things. And so they're doing that. It's all plant-based, it's raw, it's super healthy, but also incredibly delicious. And Wat has a really interesting kind of path towards coming up with this business. And I'm really, really excited to dive into it. So hey, Wat, how you doing? How do you like our farm?
Oh, it smells so good and beautiful. I love it here. All the colors or the smell, it smells so earthy and herbs, super nice.
Yeah, it's fun. It was fun walking around with you and having you taste a couple of things. And, you noticed like a few different crops. I don't know if you had a favorite when you've tasted things, but it's great seeing you kind of taste everything that we have when you visit.
A lot of herbs here reminds me so much of my childhood. I grew up eating this, except rosemary's. We don't have that in Thailand.
Yeah, so tell us about that childhood and where did you grow up? What was your first food experience like? How did you come across those first like ingredients and start thinking about food?
I was born and raised in Thailand, but my family is originally from northeast of Thailand. So we are so into super strong flavors, especially spicy and salty. That's my jam. I hated cooking so much when I was young. I think it's a lot like a lot of cultures that girls have to learn how to cook. Otherwise, you cannot get a husband. So when my mom told me to go help in the kitchen to smash chili pepper or herbs or spice, I have to do it louder to impress my neighbors. So then I probably can get married when I become a woman. And I was like, that's BS, but whatever. But I would do it anyway because my mom told me to. But when I grew up, I appreciate that experience very much. I knew what's the right texture when you smash all of those ingredients and what's different from using, let's say, food processor and use just like hand smash everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So you say Northeast Thailand. Are there differences that people who are not familiar with Thailand or Thai cuisine? What's the kind of differences in terms of cuisine or other things going on between Northeast and maybe other parts of the country that people might have visited on vacation or something like that?
Right. Just to let you guys know, we don't only have pad thai. Pad thai is kind of boring to me, but that's one of the best street food you can find. Food from the north, it's more, the flavor is more mild. And from the south, they are known to make extremely spicy. From my area, the area that my family is from, we are from, I would easily say it's a poor area, and the flavors are super strong. You don't have to eat that much because we're so poor. But I was born and raised in Bangkok, so it's pretty much everything.
And
Central flavors.
yeah. And so when you were growing up and like smashing those ingredients like garlic and I'm guessing, well, tell us what ingredients are you kind of smashing together and what are you using, like one of those big like pestle and mortar kind of things to do that, or like what's the process?
So pretty much galanga, that's basic stuff. Galanga, kaffir lime leaf, lemongrass, chili pepper for sure.
Yeah.
The we say the smallest one is the spiciest one. Um, so also we are obsessed with the complexity of the flavors. It has to be 5 flavors. Not exactly. So it's pretty much you have to get the right balance of salty, spicy, sour, sweet, bitter. Bitter is not necessary to be bitter. It's more like umami.
Yeah.
Just something more earthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that reflects what I am doing now. I care so much about the right balance of the 5 flavors that goes into when I create desserts.
Yeah, absolutely. When do you think it was that you first started to sort of think in those terms and like understand the palette and how to create like a flavor balance like that?
I think when I came to the U.S., when I was not so satisfied with the food or the curry that I went for the restaurant. When I went to the restaurant, I was a lot of times, they try to make the flavors to satisfy um, American taste buds, which is pretty much so sweet for my liking. And
Yeah.
if you ask a lot of Thai people, they would say very similar thing. And then I just start making my own curries, and that's how I start to break down the flavors, like what's the right flavors, what's the right balance. And then when I travel abroad, say when I went to Italy, I would bring some curry paste, even fish sauce to Italy to cook for my host, whoever I stay with. I went to Cuba. I still brought my ingredients to cook for my host. And then that's how I think I just wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it started from there.
Very cool. So let's sort of rewind a little bit. So grew up childhood in Thailand. What happens next? What's the path from there to get to, New York City and where we are now? How did that all sort of begin and come about?
Right. So I was first moved to New Jersey. I first moved to New Jersey, and I learned that Jersey was not my place. I did not feel like home. It was a little slow. The transportation was not convenient for me. And then when I moved to New York, I felt like home. I felt so comfortable on my own skin.
When was this?
Ooh, 15 years ago.
Okay. Okay. But
Wow,
what caused
16
that?
years
Like
ago,
what was
actually.
the drive? Like cuz I mean, you just decided to come to New
Oh,
Jersey or like
from
what's
from from New York, from Bangkok, from home to New Jersey. It was just I just wanted back then I was still young. I wanted to find myself,
Yeah.
to see what's out there. A lot of kids from my college they would come to the U.S. actually or another country like Australia, or go to England to do master degree.
Hmm.
I went to business school, and a lot of kids would want to do master degree, MBA. And then I was like, why people want to do MBA for what? Oh, they just want to make more money. And what's the point of making more money? That time I wanted to make more money like a lot of people, but I could not find the drive. Of course, money was good. It's still good. But I could not find the true drive. And I thought it would be better for me to change the experience, or the environment. So I just came here. At the time, a lot of my friends were in New Jersey, friends from college, my best friend. And I just crashed at their house, start from there, work at the restaurant, just like Thai restaurant, just like most Thai kids came here. Um, and then working in the kitchen in New Jersey, not exactly in the kitchen. I was front of the house, and then I did not feel like home in New Jersey, so I moved to New York. Worked at a Thai restaurant first. No, actually, I worked at the Thai restaurant during the day, a Japanese restaurant at night, and
Yeah.
when I develop more passion for food at a Japanese restaurant. They are not around anymore. But that's when I combine my obsession of five flavors with the texture. So at this Japanese restaurant, it's a sushi restaurant. So when I start working there, the sushi chef tests me what's the difference between the fluke and snapper. And at that time, I could not tell the difference. And that's when they start to educate me. And I was like, holy cow, these two type of fish that are the same for me, but they are not the same. And then I just start learning that, oh, actually they're different. And that's when I got so inspired by different texture. So when it comes to, again, creating dessert, flavor and texture, the right flavors and mixed textures are very important for me. And that's, the flavors come from my background. The texture comes from working at that Japanese restaurant. And
Wow.
it's so interesting. I just learned later that I could not think of the translation in Thai for the word texture. So we don't have that. It's not in our cuisine, the word texture, which is so interesting.
That is weird, huh? It's funny how in different
Yes.
languages, yeah, there's different words for things. Like I remember, in Japanese, because I lived in Japan for like 8 years, and
Oh, nice.
there's words that there's a word like natsukashi, which is sort of like a sentimental feeling, but like we don't really have that word. It's sort of like something like that. And there's other words about like the smell of rain and like, different textures of food and that kind of thing that, yeah, they don't exist.
Wow.
And like umami, right? Umami is a Japanese word anyway.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah, what do you guys say in English? Umami.
we just say umami
Is
now. I
there-
mean, like, because like savory is sort of implies that, but it's not quite the same, I think.
Right,
And then,
right.
but it's even, when people were talking about like five flavors, like salt, acid, fat, sweetness, umami wasn't even really talked about in the West until, I mean, only quite recently, like maybe like 10, 15 years ago, people started talking about umami, I think. And I think it was
Right.
partly like the influence of Asian foods, that helped do that. Because if you sort of, I mean, I grew up partially in the UK, and we sort of, in some ways, don't have food culture, in some ways. But like, so a word like umami for traditional British cuisine or something is like, it doesn't necessarily even come up.
How do you translate? How do you describe that to people, umami?
Yeah, I say like a warm, savory taste, and then you normally start to describe foods that sort of have it. I mean, obviously like kombu, seaweed, etc. But like, like I talk about mushrooms. I talk about cheesiness. Sometimes there's an umami aspect to that. I think it also relates, I think, to people, because people use MSG sometimes to like create umami flavor, right? But funnily enough, in the West,
Right.
there's so much anti-MSG like sentiment. But then one of the foods that people love the most in the West is like Parmesan cheese, which has like naturally
True.
occurring glutamate in
Yes.
it. So anyway, I think it's interesting that comes up, but so tell me more about the texture aspect and why this Japanese restaurant taught you more about texture. And are you talking about like mouthfeel or crunch or like smoothness, or what do you mean when you say that?
Even chewiness, crunchiness, soft, melt in your mouth. Those all about texture.
Yeah.
Even it's what I have though. What I learned from them, you should be able to describe when it's chewy, like how chewy. They are so much into detail, so deep into texture. And then when it's crunchy, how would it affect you? Like, do you have to, is it too much on your jaw? Or it's crunchy, like, got done fast? Or just like, last longer when you're chewing on. Those type of texture, it's just so much into it.
Yeah. No, I love that level of detail. I'm thinking about it now. I remember, like, you know, sometimes eating bread in Spain, you get so crusty bread, it's like you can almost hurt your mouth because it's so
Yes.
like crunch, you know. And then if you compare that to like a really nice tempura that's got a very fine batter to it, that's just like this
Right.
very thin crust, you know. And then like when you
Yeah.
talk about chewiness, like obviously in Japanese cuisine, you've got mochi, you've got
Ooh.
I remember, like, I have a very strong memory of eating some Korean food when I was in Belgium. I went to an international school, and there was like this day when people would obviously bring food from their own culture and everything. And I tried these glutinous rice balls from Korea for the first time, and I didn't know what I was doing, so I ate the whole thing, and I just had it in my mouth, and I could hardly breathe. You know, I nearly choked like
Wow.
on this thing,
Wow.
and it made me now think of this scene. Have you ever seen this movie called Tampopo? It's a Japanese movie.
No.
I really recommend it. It's about finding the perfect ramen recipe, and it's a sort of funny film from like the late 80s, but it's a film all about food because this woman goes on a quest to find the perfect ramen recipe, and she sort of sneaks around and looks behind the door to see what broth they're making, and she like looks to see how to make the best noodles and all that kind of stuff. But there's a scene in that movie where an older Japanese man starts choking because he's eating one of these mochi that you eat at New Year's, and it's a very common thing for people to die, like elderly people dying eating these very, very chewy things because they get it caught in their throat and then they choke.
So interesting.
Yeah, you got to
Chewy
watch
to
that
that
movie.
point that you can choke up. Now
Yeah.
I'm curious to try. Not just to choke up, but just to see the level of the chewiness.
Oh, it's really
Must be so
yeah.
impressive.
It's really sticky and sort of. It's one of these things where it just takes a long time to chew it. Like you can't just eat it and go. It's like it's done.
So you cannot. It's so hard to cut through with your teeth, and then unless you have to keep chewing to that level.
Yeah.
Just like you are eating, like chewing on some gums, like a huge, like
It's
mouthful of gum.
it's not
it that
quite gum.
level?
It's like halfway between gum and like sticky rice. It's so crazy. Anyway,
I'm
you got to
curious.
try it. Yeah, I
Now
mean,
I'm curious.
it can be nice, and a lot of people really like it. It's sort of a fun thing to eat, but it's like also if you're not accustomed to it, if you try it for the first time, it's like, whoa, this is dangerous.
I have not had anything that level, but I'm just so curious. That would lead me to something else to create on my own.
Yeah. Well, if you
Yeah.
had to choose one of the two things, watching Tampopo or eating the sticky glutinous rice ball, like I don't know, I would recommend watching the movie. It's it's like my
You know
favorite
what?
thing.
I can do both. Watching
yeah.
the movie and eating the chewy thing.
Yeah, yeah. For me, that is like the number one movie about food. I don't know if you have anything like that from like in terms of media, like food or TV shows or books or anything like that that have been something you love. But Tampopo for me is like the ultimate food movie.
Is it on Netflix, this movie?
I do not know. I didn't do my research beforehand. I
I'll
didn't
find
know we
out.
were going to talk
I'll
about
find
this.
out.
We will find out. We will find out.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so you moved to New Jersey, you start working in these restaurants, you discover more about food working in a Japanese restaurant. I know there's also like a heavy sporting story there as well. I don't know, how does this start to sort of like come together, the sports and the food and all this kind of stuff?
Yes. So I started working. So when I first set my foot in New York, I worked in the restaurant, but I knew that would not last that long. That time I was pursuing photography, so I was a photographer in my previous life. So working in a restaurant is so hard on your body. So
Yeah.
but that time I was working like crazy. I work at the Thai restaurant during the day, Japanese restaurant at night, edit picture. No, yes, and after working at the Japanese restaurant, I would edit pictures that I photographed like from days before on my day off from the restaurant. And that whatever I do, I always set a deadline for myself. So I told myself I would be working for a restaurant or any restaurant no more than 5 or 6 months in New York. And then I also did photography. And after, I think I set deadline for 5, 6 months, but actually I got done from working in a restaurant for just 4 months and I just pursue photography. So I was a contractor for a big corporate. Um, Fortunately, I got to travel all around the country. So that's the cool part that I got to photograph all the landscape, do fine art along like commercial photography. And
Oh,
I got to eat different kind of food from different states all over the country.
wow.
So that's fun. So after I got done from working at the restaurant, I only do photography. So then I got more time to do Muay Thai, which is Thai kickboxing. So just like anybody else who start training, um, I got so much into it. I was so addicted to Muay Thai. I would train twice a day. And just like when you have a knife, you just keep sharpening your knife. One day you want to use it. Just like me. I was training so much and I was like, I want to compete.
Yeah.
And then
But
I
you didn't have any like background in sports in your family or like growing
no,
up. Like how did
no.
you choose Muay Thai I mean, obviously you're Thai, but like there's millions of other sports as well. Like what was it about
Right.
that made you want to do it?
Me being from Thailand or being a Thai person is so useless with Muay Thai. I did not start doing Muay Thai until I came to the US. Um, Instead of learning from like Thai fighters, Thai trainers in Thailand, I
Yeah.
learned um, from Americans here, which is they're awesome because they're so passionate about fightings and Muay Thai, and that's all they do. I started
Right.
at a gym, same as my name, the Wat, that means temple, with few nurses. And then I met Koban. He's a Thai legend, 5 times. I think it's either 5 times or 7 times world champion. So I started training with him, fought my first fight, and then start from there. So
But like I'm
to
curious, sorry, I'm interrupting again, but like I'm
no,
just
please.
curious about this. Like but what was it about like Muay Thai that you thought you want to do that? I'm so like I guess because some people choose skydiving or yoga or surfing or
Right.
basketball or even different kinds of like boxing or jiu-jitsu or whatever. Like what is it about Muay Thai that like caught your imagination and made you decide to go back, right, and just keep doing this thing?
I think different reason. That's a very good question. I think, first of all, I have very obsessive personality. If I start doing skateboarding, I probably just pursue that route.
Yeah.
But I just thought I wanted to do Muay Thai. It's so funny. When I was in Thailand, you know what martial art I did? I did Brazilian Jiu Jitsu in Thailand. When I can get the world
Right.
champ to train me in Muay Thai, but I did BJJ because doing Muay Thai was not cool enough. Way back 15 years ago, 20 years ago, Muay Thai was not a cool sport. It was a career for poor people. And they did not have choice. They did not have the money to go to school. They did not have money to eat. And that's when you pursue Muay Thai as your career.
Yeah.
Who want to get beat up on the ring for little money as a 7 years old child? Nobody. So it was not a cool sport until the funny thing is though, we Thai people had to wait for American, not only American, Westerners to bring the value of Muay Thai back to Thailand and to make it so cool. And then new generations start picking up Muay Thai as a sport.
Wow,
But I was
okay.
doing that when I came here. But now Muay Thai is such a cool thing. You can see Muay Thai school or Muay Thai gym at any shopping mall, because shopping mall, it's everything in Thailand. And also, when I start doing Muay Thai, I did not tell my mom right away, because I started doing Muay Thai when I came to New York. And then when I got so into it, I told my mom, I called her. I was like, Ma, I started doing Muay Thai. It's so good. I love it. And I told her I wanted to fight. And then she was quiet on the phone. I was like, oh crap. She must be upset that I'm doing Muay Thai.
Yeah.
And then she said, you know what? Your grandfather was a Muay Thai fighter. I was like, holy cow, really? That's so cool.
What?
So,
you didn't know? You had no idea?
No, I had no idea because my grandfather passed away when my mom was little, when my mom was like 6-7 years old. So my mom told me the story of my grandfather, that so my grandmother went to a market and then she saw a Muay Thai fight in the market, and that's my grandfather, and that's how they met each other for the first time, and
wow.
it was more like love at first sight. So so my grandfather was still fighting, but after they got married, set up a family, he had to quit fighting because he would not make enough money to support his family.
Yeah.
And that inspired me even more.
Amazing.
So, yeah, and then my mom would describe how my grandfather would look like. She had very vague memory about my grandfather because he passed when she was young. She said he had tattoo from all, like the tattoo, his back would cover with tattoo from his neck down to his lower back. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And that's how part of that, it inspired me to get tattooed too. Both Muay Thai and tattoo.
Yeah, yeah. Is there
Yes.
any? But there's no connection between Muay Thai and the tattoos. It's just that's just his style, or is there?
You know, in Thailand, the way we get tattoo, we call sakyan. It's more like they call it magic tattoo, which is for protection. You get tattoo not just for the look, but mainly for protection. That's way, way back, like old generation. But
Yeah.
now, like, you can get whatever you want. Like you pick picture from the wall and put on your arm. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
different now.
It's funny because again, like living in Japan, tattoos have like such a connotation of like yakuza, and you can't even go into a lot of baths.
Swimming
like,
pool.
Yeah, exactly, with tattoos, and then
Yeah.
obviously in the West, the nature of tattoos, it seems like obviously became way more popular in the last like 15 years or something, and it's always interesting just learning about different, like how tattoos are in different cultures, and even like
Right.
placement of tattoos, like describe like chest to neck or whatever, whereas it's just different everywhere. It's really interesting.
Or teardrop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's next. Yeah. Maybe for every lost plant, we should get like a little
Right.
teardrop on
I
the
know,
farm.
right?
Yeah, might be quite a few on the farm. And so, okay, so you start doing Muay Thai, you start really enjoying it. But how do you do all this? So you're doing the photography, you're doing the restaurants, you're doing the Muay Thai. Like how many hours? It sounds like you're taking 26 hours a day to do everything you need
I
to do.
know. So by the time I started doing photography and Muay Thai, I was done from working at the restaurant.
Yeah.
So I only did photography. So that time I was doing a lot of architecture photography and landscape on the side as like fine art and outlet for. I just love landscape. Part of that I got to travel all around the country. So then I got to do Muay Thai on the side. So first it was just a workout. And then when I became very obsessed, I wanted to fight. And then when I started fighting, I learned that training hard was not enough. So you have to have the right diet. So I would just search for the right diet. I was not searching, to be honest. And that time I was drinking a lot. Had a lot of wine and cheese at night, and I had no problem drinking by myself. To the point that I was like, I need
What
to
age
stop.
were you, by the way, at this point?
That time I think I was in my early 30s. I started
Yeah.
fighting at 33.
Yeah,
Not young.
I asked because literally until I was like 28 or 29, I felt like I could just eat whatever and then wake up the next day,
Right.
feel totally fine. And then the moment I sort of
Yeah.
started to turn 29, 30, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what? And I remember like having there was a guy I used to work with at my old company, and he was whatever, 45, 46, and I was like turning 30. And I remember we would go out to eat, and he would eat like healthy food. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, oh, why don't you just have some fun, have some fries or whatever? And he was like, oh, no, trust me, you'll know in like 10 years' time. You'll know. Like, you got to
Yeah.
eat right. So anyway, but it's interesting that, yeah, you kind of went through that process. So how do you, and how did you find like nutrition information or diet information at that point? Like, what were you, because there's obviously a million ways to get diet advice,
Right. So it started from I was so sick of my own pattern of drinking so much wine and have paired with cheese. Um, there was one night that I finished a whole bottle of wine by myself, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, this is getting too much." And because I was about to open the second bottle, I was like, I needed to stop. And then I searched. I forgot how it started. Oh, you know what? I found a book about juice cleanse at a time. And then I just cold turkey, just juice fast right away. I forgot how long. And that time when I was juice fasting, I was reading a lot of books, educate myself about. I stumbled onto a book about raw plant-based, raw vegan. And that time when I was drinking a lot of juice, I was like, oh my God, I'm so ready to dive into this lifestyle after I'm done from juice fasting. And then I started right away. And that's the turning point. And then I have been on plant-based. And I felt so much energy. Part of that, no matter, I think this is my conclusion, no matter what diet you try to pursue, whatever you want to follow, as long as you cut all the junk out of your diet, you feel great to begin with. I cut out all the alcohol, the cheese, all the processed food, refined sugar. I felt like $1,000,000 right away. And then I did not want to leave that diet lifestyle. So I started from there. So when I became so much more into fighting, and I thought I would adopt that lifestyle. So I was on raw plant-based, not exactly, not 100% raw, because that's a lot of work. But I had a dehydrator at that time. I drank a lot of smoothie. The sad part, whatever I made tastes like cardboard. Like I juice a lot, so there's a lot of leftover. There's a lot of pulp from all the vegetable, and I felt bad throwing them away.
Yeah.
Because there's so much. I drank so much. I think I probably drank about 80 ounces of juice. So there's a lot of pulp there. So I was like, I felt bad throwing anything away. So I used everything, not everything, but a lot to make crackers. I put all the seasoning, whatever I could think. And yeah, it tastes horrible. The
So you
texture,
were
the
just sort of
flavor,
like
oof.
you were just sort of like experimenting with doing things with vegetables, I guess, right? You were juicing and then you were
Yes.
trying to use the pulp and like I mean, I've tried to use
Yes.
pulp and yeah, you can sort of hide it in places and but it's tough to just use it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friends were so sweet. They was like, that's good. And that time I started dating Chris. We went for a bike ride. I thought I would impress the man, packing raw plant-based crackers. Pass it to Chris when we were taking a break. And he was being nice. He had a bite and he gave it back to me. And he did not say anything. He's like, no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah.
And then and later he told me it tastes like cardboard. I was like, well, I'm not surprised.
So you were sort of, I mean, I think like if you do a juice cleanse, then, you know, doing a raw plant-based diet, that sounds great. Like if you're just drinking juice, then almost any like solid food sounds amazing. So like that might be one way to do it. But like, what did you experience related to that food and then your training? Because obviously you can't train super hard and do a juiced fast for too long, right? Like, so how did you start to sort of think about how you were going to eat and your training and how to give yourself enough energy and recovery and all that kind of stuff?
I learned it a very hard way. So, and after my first juice fast, I love the energy that I got during that time. So I set myself, I would juice as much as I can. Sometimes I would do 5-day juice. I would do it a few times a year. Sometimes I would do 7 days. So during that time, I learned that your body detox itself. When your body is detoxing, you get all the symptoms. So there's 2 things that you cannot avoid. One, the detox that you have to deal with, or the detox symptom like headache, nauseous, or whatever. And the second is hunger. These 2 things you can avoid. But then I learned more and more that if your body have less toxin, you deal with detox symptom less and less. So before I jump into juice fast or juice cleanse, let's say I wanted to do 10 days, I would prep my body 2 weeks before. That time I would just be so strict, not having anything fried. Oh, my weakness is chips and fries. And I started eating that when I came to the US. So I would cut out all the fries, all the processed food, anything that has sugar, although I did not have sugar that much to begin with. So I would just eat raw, plant-based, clean. I did not even touch olive oil. Even I did, it would be so little. So my body would be so clean. When my body was detoxing itself, I would not have to put up with all the pain, like the headache, the nausea, or whatever. And I would be so high from the energy. And that was the best. But the thing though, that I could not avoid is the hunger. But I reminded myself, hunger comes and go. So when I was training, I still trained like normal. I was fasting during one of my fight camp. So I noticed that when I was eating normal, and I would go to train, I would be bitching that, oh my God, I'm so full, I'm so heavy. I feel heavy. But then when I juice fast, I would be bitching the same, oh my God, I'm so hungry. I would be bitching anyway, so I'd rather be bitching and have more energy. So to me, it's the same. So hunger comes and go. That's it.
Yeah.
As long as I don't have headache, no nausea, I'm fine.
Yeah, it's funny, because there's so many emotions around food, right? And
Oh yeah,
and
100%.
Like, for a start, I think your brain, essentially you think a little bit differently when you're hungry to when you're full. You just sort of have different reactions to things. I have the same feelings as you. Sometimes, like, if I eat a lot and I'm full, I'm angry about eating too much. I feel lethargic. I feel shitty anyway. If I'm hungry, then I feel, annoyed in a different way. And so, yeah, you're right. Like, sometimes it's just better to be hungry. And I think, like, a lot of the time in our culture now, we're just not used to being hungry. Or, like, if we just follow, like, the general pattern of a day and, like, just do what is this, if you walk around the streets in New York normally, like, there's just constantly things telling you to eat all the time, and so actually being hungry is like sort of unusual. But I also find that, like, when you're doing something like, sometimes I just drink smoothies for a week or something, and there's certain things that feel really good about that, and then there's other things where you're also just bored. You're just bored of drinking your food, and you're bored of not eating with friends. You're bored of, like, all this stuff. And it's so hard to, like, disentangle these things and separate them out and eating, like, even just eating, like, super clean is actually, it's tough, and it's tough to do that in a social way as well, because the moment you want to eat out with someone, they don't necessarily want to eat, pure
What you eat.
whole food or anything like that. I don't know. I'm just saying it's tough.
Well, lately I would, let's say well, not lately because of the pandemic, I would eat before I go to an event, although that's a food event, because that's a good way to tame myself not eating.
Yeah.
So I can just focus on people, getting to know new people, new friends, make friends, especially if it's a business event. So I get to meet new people, focus on them rather than I need to eat or have food in my
Yeah.
mouth. So
Yeah, no, I think that's a good
and I
tactic. I think like one of the funny things is though, when you go to college and you're a student and you don't have any money, like going to an event is like free food, right? And so I've just built up this instinct in my life that like if I go somewhere, oh, it's free food. Okay, like it's really hard to get my brain out of this mode where I'm like, I don't actually need to eat that food. Like I have plenty of food at home. I can choose what I eat. But it's so hard to like even think that way sometimes. Maybe it's just my problem.
especially
but,
like food is so good. Like they make the best food and put it in front of you. Sometimes you just want to munch here and there. By the time
yeah.
you're done, you ate more than you need. So I just
Yeah.
like cut it out.
Yeah.
And
No,
just
that's
I
good.
would not tell people. Then they would just say, "Why are you not eating?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sorry, so this was a sidetrack, but no, it's interesting. But like, so you started making some food for yourself. You started eating raw and plant-based. And so what happened next? How did you sort of make the leap to start to make desserts and start to, create awesome treats?
right. So because I am surrounded by athletes, fighters specifically, and all fighters cut weight. Um, but I was like, what's the point of me sacrifice everything and not enjoying life, especially food? So I wanted to eat still dessert, but I did not want to sacrifice like gaining weight or not performing well. And I knew that when I ate raw plant-based food, um, I don't have to. I did not have to be concerned about gaining weight. I did not have to be concerned about feeling sluggish after, after eating before going to training. And then I started making my own dessert because I love dessert. It started from there. And again, it did not taste that good to begin with, to be honest, just like anything else when you first start making it, unless you are super talented and then you got it right, just right like that. But me, no. I started making banana cream pie, which it was good, and start sharing with Chris, my husband, and also sharing with my friends at the gym. So one of my friends, um, he said, "Dude, you should sell this." I was like, "Nobody is going to buy because it's so expensive." And he's like, "This is New York. People would buy if you can do exactly what they want." And I thought he was saying that because I wanted to hear it, but I did not buy sweet talk from him. But then
But wait,
I
so
share with him.
just for context, like why tell people like why is it expensive? Why is it expensive to make these kind of raw desserts and
Let's
that kind of thing?
say um, if you make banana cream pie from flour, you just use flour, a huge bag. I don't know how many you can bake the crust. I don't bake, so I don't know. And then you just use some refined sugar. You use, of course, bananas, a little bit of butter, I guess. But that's pretty much it. But when you make raw dessert, pow per pow of the flour and cashews are so much different already. And you use coconut oil, you use, let's say, maple syrup, agave, or the healthier sweetener. The price is so much different from refined sugar. And
Yeah.
when it comes together, it's more expensive. You have to ground the cashews, make into cashew meal. You have to find the good sweetener that doesn't alter the flavor of bananas. So all of those things
Yeah, I think
it's more expensive.
like people don't realize unless they've tried to make plant-based food, how much in traditional baking you rely on dairy products and eggs that are
Right.
either subsidized or they've gone through, the process of making butter, right? Like that is a very manual
Yeah.
process. And with a lot of plant-based products, you have to effectively do that yourself. You're
Right.
grinding things, you're blending them, you're dehydrating, you're doing all this extra
Yeah.
process just to get like a basic ingredient that if you're using dairy products you can just buy from the refrigerator in the grocery store. And it's and also like these nuts, of course, like nuts are very expensive products
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
general. Anyway, yeah, I just thought it's good to know for people because it's sort of like one of those things that unless you've sort of tried to make things yourself, sometimes you don't realize like how much these things cost and how much everyday cooks are like have an advantage if they're using dairy products or eggs because it's just so quick and so easy to get things to happen.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
okay. And so yeah, so
Yeah, so
you
it's-
realized this was going to be expensive, but in New York City maybe everything's possible.
Yeah, 100%. Everything is in New York. You can make it possible. It was so I start sharing with friends at the gym and then they start buying. They ask, hey, can I buy? Because they were concerned about gaining weight and they did not food to affect their performance. And then I was like, really? And then I just started selling. I did not have a website at the time. It was very casual too. So I started from posting on Facebook on my own, my account. I did not have a business page or anything. And I remember because a lot of friends were asking, and then I was like, oh, I should do something about this. So I started creating a Facebook page. Um, and but that's way later. But I started selling. I think I started selling officially such a perfect timing. I think a few weeks before Thanksgiving. So I started taking orders from friends at the gym. And when I first started taking orders, I was so happy because all the friends just like placed their orders. 1 week went by, and then I felt so down because I felt like, oh shoot, am I imposing my friends? They start buying because they wanted to support me because they're good friends. I'm so lucky to have good friends, but I felt bad that I was imposing friends to buy my stuff. Then the same friends, after they placed the first order, they came back and order again. And their co-workers, because they brought pies. That time there was banana cream pie and some chocolate pie. And then, so they brought those pies to their office. Their co-workers start ordering. And then their families start ordering. I was like, oh, actually they like it. And then later, 2 weeks later, it was around Thanksgiving, and then people start ordering. And I did not, in my life, I never sell products. I never make anything. I was a photographer. I was working at the restaurant when I came to New York. I did not even know how to count inventory. And I was working. I got back home after training, maybe around 8 or 9, and then I started making pies. Sometimes when I was squeezing lemons and I ran out of lemons in the middle of the night, that shows how bad I was with like checking inventories. I
Yeah.
did not even know how to pack the pies. I just bought like the tin aluminum foil with the plastic cover. That's my packaging. Until a friend of mine works in the same. I think she used to work in the same building as I forgot there's some food TV show, and she gave me that box, like the craft boxes. She's like, oh, this box looks so good. I thought about you. So she grabbed like a bunch, and then I just start using that boxes that look so good. And I did not even know how to pack, how to keep the pie secured in the pie board.
Yeah.
So I did not go to culinary school. I never worked at any bakery. I worked at the restaurant, just the front of the house. Although when I was working for a Japanese restaurant, I like hanging out in the kitchen and learn so much from the chef, but it's nothing like making dessert. So I had to figure out everything myself. For me, it's about common sense. I probably have common sense in the kitchen, but I could be so dumb on something like I don't know math so well, but I know how to mix the flavors. I know how to go around the kitchen. Also, the funny thing is though, what people think the way I started, it could be very ghetto because I did not have any equipment. But for me, I would say that I have to be A, very creative, B, very resourceful because I did not know what's the right way to do. So I just have to make whatever around me work.
Yeah.
I did not have the proper training background. I did not see what's the right way. So I only use my common sense.
Yeah.
But it's a lot. I made a lot of mistakes too. It stressed me out.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, we all go through that kind of stuff. But I think that's sort of like, I mean, sometimes the best way, right? Because,
Oh yeah.
it's, and to be honest with what you're doing, right? It's not like there's this huge, long history of French patisserie with raw vegan ingredients.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't exist, And so everybody's
I mean-
kind of trying things out for the first time.
Like how much you can search on internet about back then raw vegan food, like even how to pack stuff. So you just or trial and errors, and it was not easy for me because I did not have that background. Good thing that we have a big kitchen that I can spread everything out, but it's a lot of work. I would work from. I would say I was on a night shift. Start from 9. I would go to bed maybe 4 or 5 in the morning,
Oh my
sometimes
God.
6 in the morning. And it was going on like that for like, I slept 3 hours, 4 hours, 4 hours if I was lucky. It was going on like that for 4 years, on my feet for like 14, 18 hours a day.
Oh my God.
It hurts.
I can't handle that.
And that's kind of the best way to abuse my body aside from fighting. And that leads to so many issues later. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I hope you're okay now.
I am okay now, but it's like in order to deal with that, you have to understand how it started. It was a lot with health, with my foot, with my mental health, which I learned later that it's because of I did not sleep, and when you don't sleep, it messed everything up. My hormones, it was so bad, but I don't regret it. I learned a very hard way, and I learned how to deal with it, which is good. I mean,
Yeah.
I am beyond happy at where I am now. But what sometimes it irritates me a lot when people say, "Oh, you're so lucky. You just started your business. You get this and this and this to get to open a shop." People just see me being very successful. The word very successful, which is I don't quite buy that yet, but they just think it's overnight success, which is they did not see when I was grinding, when people go on vacation, when people get to eat out, when people get to see their friends. I did not get to do any of that. I slept 4 hours, 3 hours, if I was lucky. I was on my feet all day. Did not get to see friends, did not have vacation, barely see my husband. It was not easy.
Yeah. No, it's a classic thing where people think it's like an overnight success. And then when you actually look into it, it's like, no, that was 10 years of work. And that was, 8 of those years where nobody even knew about what was going on.
Yeah.
So, and so did you manage to I was going to use the word balance, but I guess there is no balance, but like, you kept on fighting, and then you kept on making, the desserts and gradually turning it into a real business. Like, how did you manage to do? I mean, I guess you've told us by not sleeping, But like,
Yeah.
what was that evolution like, and how did and how many years has that sort of taken, and what does the business sort of look like now compared to the beginnings when you started?
So when I was working at my own kitchen at the apartment, um, maybe 4 years, 4 to 5 years that I was on my feet for like 14 hours a day, slept 3, 4 hours a day a night. And then when we opened a shop, it was still not easy. The first thing that I thought it was so hard was finding the right team. I never work with, I never work in the, I never own anything like a shop because with my previous life, I was a photographer, I was an artist. So running a shop, recruiting staff, team members, I did not have the eyes, the heart to look for the right team. Whoever came by, I took them first. Whoever I thought they looked right, until and it did not work out. And then I blame it to myself, like what's wrong with me? Why I could not attract the right people? I just took it way too personal, too hard.
Yeah.
Which it was not healthy at all. And I I learned to be more patient. Here's a very good example. It's more a little religious. So one of my teachers, the monk at the Buddhist temple, he they have seen how I was struggling with finding the right staff, finding the right team members. I went to visit them one day, and the abbot asked, "How is it going with your employees, your staff?" Just that one question. He did not ask more than this. I was crying in front of him. And my teacher was saying that, imagine how many life, how many times that the Buddha have to be born, reborn in order to have the right followers of 5 followers. How many years, how many lives he had to combine in order to get the good student, the followers, maybe 10 lives, 100 lives all together. You were just this life, you just opened your business. You have been doing this for 5 years. You opened your shop for 1 year. What are you expecting? And then I was like, that's it, that's the end. And go back to my fight mode, which is hand up, chin down, and walk forward when you're on the ring. So I told myself, whatever hit me, I would just have to hands up, chin down, and walk forward. At that time, I did not have the right staff. Like people come and go. They mess things up and they leave. They just like some employees at that time. I love them, but there's reason to force them to leave. Like one of the girls was having some visa issue, and then she had to move back to her country. And then I took it way too personal. I thought I was not good enough for her to fight to stay, but nothing she could do, nothing I could do, but I took it way too personal. But after talking to my teacher, I was like, no matter what happened, hands up, chin down, and walk forward. And that's how I carry. I just like, whatever come at me, just come at me. I would just get up and do it again.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and then another story, very good story. I spoke with another business owner. She owns a tattoo shop, a block from me, Grit and Glory. She said it took her 5 years to get the right team. I was like, holy cow. I have been around for 2 years at that time. I should stop bitching. I should stop blaming anything. And then I just like, all right, whatever, hands up, chin down, walk forward.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And now I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I wake up in the morning, go to bed at night. I thank my team. They work so hard. They have high work ethic. Whenever I leave the shop to go to do deliveries or have to take care of my business somewhere else, I know as soon as I step out, they work harder. And they do better than I do. It's so amazing. I'm so grateful every day. Um, so
Yeah.
now I have the right team, solid team, and they do such an amazing job, better than I do.
I mean, that's the best place to be. You know, that's the best place to be, isn't it? Because I don't know, it makes everything possible, and it means like you can stop. You know, the moment you have the right team in place, a good proportion of your time can now be spent on thinking about other things, as opposed to
Yeah.
fighting a fire about somebody who doesn't really want to be there, or trying to play peacekeeper between two people who don't want to work together. All that stuff, like with the right team, that just goes away, and you can all focus on the right thing. But I mean, I know I share your experience. I think like I've been through situations where, yeah, I thought I had the right team. I didn't. I thought I knew what I was doing. I didn't. And part of that mindset, like you said, what was it? Chin up, eyes forward, keep going, or something like that.
Hands up, chin down, walk. So when you fight on the ring, you cannot just keep the chin because you can get hit on the jaw here, and then you can get knocked out easily.
All right,
So
hands
just
up,
hands up,
chin down.
chin
Okay.
down, and
Yeah.
walk forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, the phrase that always comes to my mind is that like startups, it's what do we say? It's calculus, not statistics. Like if you look at the statistics, most startups fail. Almost every
Right.
business fail. It's more about calculating like how am I going to win? How am I going to make sure I'm going to win? And you don't even believe you just like take that idea that you're going to fail like completely out of your mind, right? The same as like I'm sure if you're going into a fight, like the moment you believe you might lose, like that's it. It's over basically. You have to keep believing.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a lot of mental game too. It's so hard. I was at the shop at the beginning from 8 in the morning to midnight. I went back home. I still could not shut my brain off.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough. Sometimes I'm like that. Sometimes I can, take my brain off. I definitely really appreciate going home to Gabby and having Tyler the dog and just having stuff that is completely, because a lot of the time Gabby is really excited about what we're doing, but other times she doesn't want to hear about it at all. So like there's no chance of me even talking about it. So we got to just move on and do something else. And it's great. It's a really, really good thing. And I'm really appreciative of it. I guess like I'm curious, do you have advice for other people who are thinking about starting, whether it's a plant-based business or like a local food business or something like this? Like, do you have, some wisdom that you can share? Maybe it's like don't do it, but like apart from that, what
No,
other things
I
should people know?
I always say just do it. Just do it. There's no a perfect timing. There's no perfect team. There's no perfect investor. You just have to do it and prove it that you deserve everything. Nobody believe you. But one thing though, you have to believe in yourself. I don't think my husband / investor, Chris, believed in me at the beginning, but I kept grinding. I did not stop. It was so hard.
Yeah.
The transition from doing wedding photography, that time I was doing wedding photography too. From leaving $4,000 package of wedding photography to sell $40 pies. Did not even make sense to anybody, but they totally believed in the products that I was doing because it works so great with me. One thing though, the reason why I say just do it, but first thing first, you have to believe in it. You have to believe in it long, deep enough to do it. Because if nobody believe in it, you still believe in it. So no matter what happened, you believe in it and you just keep grinding. And that's when you get it. I mean, only you can perfect your craft. Nobody else though.
Yeah.
When I was so lucky, but before getting lucky, I was working so hard. I was working hard enough to prove that I deserve it. When I got a phone call from Food&Wine magazine for the first time, I was nauseous. I wanted to throw up because I did not have culinary background. I never worked for anybody. I still don't have any credential in culinary school, anything. But at the time, I was just like, fuck it, I deserve this. And then that's it. I think you just have to believe in yourself. I got a lot of emails asked, what should I do? How should I start? I cannot tell in detail because different business, different type of business take different type of steps. But I only tell them that if you believe in yourself, just do it. A trial and error. Your experience will teach yourself. If you're not good at certain things, admit it and find someone to help you get there. I'm not good with math, with money, and Chris is the perfect partner for me in this business. But because I am not good with numbers, there's a lot of friction between me and Chris. But I needed him. I really need him, and Chris needs me to create, to be a creative person in this business. So I admit that I'm not good with numbers, so I just have to let someone to do it. But I believe in my own creativity. I believe in my product, and I just dig deep into it.
Yeah.
So my best advice to everybody, just do it.
Yeah, I mean, and to that point, like, you can be great at math, but unless you make delicious food, there's no point having a business anyway. So, I mean, it's always going to be like that you're strong in one area and not as strong in another area. And that's okay. Like, every business is like that. And there's no founder who's great at everything. Anyone who believes they're great at everything is probably just fooling themselves, I guess. So I completely agree with you. I think it's a great message. I want to ask you a couple more questions, like more just specifically about what you're doing now. So I'd love to tell people, like, what's on the menu? What do you make? Who do you make it for? What are the ingredients? What are some of the favorite things that you have that you make?
So right now, I am obsessed with ice cream sandwiches.
Me too.
So
I've
much
tried them.
fun.
They're amazing. So I really love it. Yeah.
Which
I love
flavors did you try?
Oh, I think I had all
moo.
of them. But there's one. There's one that's sort of like a cookies and
Oh,
ice.
it's moo. It's a chocolate chips crust, right, with a vanilla filling.
Yeah.
Yes, that's moo. MOO.
Yeah,
And
amazing.
here's a cute thing though. The name is like a moo cow, but actually it's the name of my dog. His name is Moo, and he's black and white like a moo cow, but he makes funny noise like a pig. So moo in Thai means pig. So it's kind
Oh.
of bilingual.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
it's like he can be a moo cow or moo pig. It depends on which language you choose to speak.
That's so funny.
And,
Okay.
Yeah, so we have the moo flavor, moo ice cream sandwich. We have banana dark chocolate, which is so addictive.
And how do you make the what are the ingredients of some of those then?
So we use a lot of cashews. So cashews for pastry bakery, well, it's more like it works like cream because cashews has very creamy texture when you soak, and the flavor is very neutral, just like cream or heavy cream. I don't know cream and whipped cream, those stuff that well, but I believe it's kind of mimic the same flavors, like it's very similar flavors. So we use that as our base when we make ice cream or anything like creamy texture or flavor. So yes, that's our base. And depends on how do you want to pair with the crust. Like the moo has chocolate chip crust. Anything that crunchy in chocolate flavors, we use cacao nibs to make it crunchy and cacao powder as chocolate. And we have carrot cake ice cream sandwich. That is my addiction. I get sick of my own dessert, but something about my carrot cake that I can't get enough. We have red velvet. We are launching new flavors, which is savory. We're gonna launch the green curry ice cream sandwich because I am obsessed with green curry.
Yeah, I want to try this. I haven't had this yet. This is exciting.
Yeah, soon. We are launching more flavors, which is gonna be tamarind. Tamarind, it's tropical fruit.
Yeah.
There are two types of tamarinds. The tamarind that's sweet, we eat like fruit, similar to dates because they're sweet. And another type is super sour. We use that for cooking. Instead of using lime or lemon juice, we use tamarind. So that's coming out soon.
Oh, it's going to be so good. I can't wait for that
Yes.
one. So what? So, but you've got all kinds of other stuff as well. You make the. Do you call them pies? Or do you call them tarts? Or
The funny thing is that we use the word pie and cake interchangeably, but I start from making pies, so I call everything pies as
Okay.
like a generic name. So we have pies, we have cakes, we have tart, ice cream sandwich, and we have raw vegan curry, which is
Yeah.
it tastes exactly like green curry, but we just like to have fun with the color. So
Yeah.
we have blue curry, which is the color is from blue spirulina, and pink from beet juice.
yeah, it's delicious. I've had it and using kelp noodles, right? And that,
Yes,
yeah, and it
yes.
comes with the. I had like a bit of avocado in there, some bell peppers. It's a really fresh, like spicy. Oh, it's awesome. I shared it with Gabby and we had that like a couple of weeks ago. I loved it. It was really, really good. And actually, like one of the things about it that I thought is so good is like, yeah, you're getting some of those flavors of a green curry, but it's in a completely different package than what you would
Yeah.
normally get. And I think that, certainly in New York, when you go out for Thai food, sometimes if you have something like a green curry, it's like kind of a heavy thing. Like you're going to have a load of rice with it. Like it's quite a rich
Yeah.
dish. And whereas this is more like it's something that actually like perks you up. It gives you energy. And that blue color from the spirulina is like, it's not too much as well. It's just like quite subtle, I think. So I think it's a really good dish. I think it's great.
Thank
I
you.
really like it. And tell us, so what kind of people do you have? I mean, you have the store. It's on Orchard Street. Is that right? In the East
Right, in
Village?
the Lower East Side, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of people come by and who buys from you? I know that you sell directly out of the store, but also you ship, nationally, I guess, like pretty far
Yes.
as well. So what
Right.
are your customers like?
So our clientele, our customers are all kinds. So we have foodies that they don't care about diet. They just care about new things.
Yeah.
They care about new flavors, cool stuff. They love trying new things. We have plant-based vegan customers, a lot of them. And we have a lot of paleo people, a lot of people with food restriction, food allergies. So we belong to pretty much all kind of diet restriction except nut allergy, since we are raw, plant-based, gluten-free. We don't use any grains. Paleo, soy-free too. We don't use any soy. So also we offer keto recently. Since I experimented keto before for months, so we use monk fruit.
Oh, interesting.
But the texture
Okay.
is not the same as using typical sugar,
Yeah.
because agave, maple syrup, or honey will give you more delicate texture because of the sugar. Sugar doesn't freeze, but monk fruit is powder. So if you don't get the right ratio of other ingredients, it doesn't work with all the flavors. So you have to get the right ratio mixing in with other ingredients. Otherwise, it would be like a brick,
Yeah.
or the texture would not be so pleasant. So I work with some flavors. So we offer keto as well.
And tell us like what's the store like and what's a typical kind of day for your team preparing this food, making it, shipping things out? How does that whole thing kind of work on a day-to-day basis?
So day-to-day basis is we plan our production. So we do weekly planning to see what we are making next week, but sometimes it's so unpredictable. So randomly we would sell so much black sesame, which is like, it's not a top hit. I know it's your favorite. It's my favorite too. It's a weird flavor to sell, but sometimes we would just sell try some, which is the most popular flavors is mixed berries and chocolate that we always sell. But sometimes we sell so well. We have like same day pickup, walk in and pick up. So even though we plan to make that day, weekly, but a lot of time we have to do it more frequent. So our weekly production plan can change. We just revise the plan, say almost every day
Yeah.
because the pandemic changed everything. It's so hard to predict now. We take things day by day, although we still have to plan weekly. So rather than having walk-in customers, we have wholesale customers, which we sell to restaurants. Now we're having more. Uh, we have Jaja, which is plant-based Mexican. We have Ethiopian, plant-based Ethiopian, which is Ras plant-based, and we have Thai restaurant in upstate, and we start having more wholesale customers. And also we do nationwide shipping, which we ship out once a week, every Tuesday. So customer would place an order. Now regular customers know when the cutoff is like every Sunday they would place it before midnight. So we have one day to prepare to pack everything, which is Monday, the day that we are closed, and then we ship out every Tuesday. We ship out once a week, so our scale is not that big. So in order to keep the cost down to $35 per shipping per package, we have to do everything in one day.
Yeah.
So
Because it's a busy
that's
day.
good. So we ship out all over the state except Alaska and Hawaii.
Oh,
Can't go
those
that
poor
far
people in
yet.
Hawaii. Maybe one day you need to open up a store in Hawaii or something. You know?
That's the poor people enjoy the warmth and all the fresh produce in Hawaii. No GMO. Good for them. Yes.
Yeah. And so, what are your plans, for the year ahead? I know that obviously 2020, I'm sure it's just been an up and down year, and in 2021 we're starting to maybe in like 9 months time, the world gets back to normal after everybody's vaccinated. I don't know, but what are your plans for Rawsome, and where do you kind of want to take the business long term?
So short term and long term. So short term, we are planning to expand into supermarket. We have very good relationship with them. I don't want to say too soon until we actually launch something with them. So we are expanding to supermarket. But for long term, my vision is to make Rawsome treats more accessible. We want to get distributor all around the country, so it would not be hard for West Coast to get our product. We have been contacted by other countries. That would be the next step. But because of the pandemic, keep me grounded. So I take things one day at a time.
Yeah.
The pandemic teach me to be more grounded, not to be. It changed my mindset a lot. Instead of taking the world, of course, I'm not taking the world. Thinking too big, I would just be more committed to quality, care about my team. I can't express enough how much I love my team and my customers who have been supporting, caring, always check with me like how we are doing. So that's where I am committed to for now. Future, I would say if I'm committed to what I'm doing right now, committed to quality, committed to my customers, my team, good things will come. One thing leads to another. That's what I always believe.
Yeah. I think that's a great sentiment, and I think that's a wise thing to come out of this pandemic with those thoughts. And certainly, it's led me to appreciate some things I don't think I was noticing. It certainly makes me appreciate the folks who work here and the team and how we've kind of got through this. And yeah, like I think that like respect for patience, being patient is it's only a good thing, And I'm really glad that, Rawsome managed to get through the pandemic, that, you're releasing new things. I think it's so exciting. We're excited to, share some of your products with our members. And no, I think it's really great what you're doing. And if nothing else, I love eating your food. And I know I'm going to be eating a lot more of it over this year. I can't wait to try those new ice cream sandwich flavors like the tamarind. I'm like really excited about. I'm also excited about the pie that you brought us, the berries and chocolate one. That was a great gift. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I don't know. So is there are there any kind of parting thoughts that you want to share with our audience? Any message, anything you'd love people to know about or to think about this week?
I've been getting a lot of emails about how they can go through this pandemic, how they can start business during this time. Even before the pandemic, I got the same email. I would say still the same thing. Just do it. Be committed to quality. Just believe in what you do. I believe in good karma. If you do the right thing, it will come to you. The good things will come to you. And if you work hard, you will be so lucky. But you just have to work hard enough to be lucky.
Yeah, I believe you do work hard. I'm amazed by your drive and your passion, and I think that's an awesome message. And just before we go, how do people find you? How do you find Rawsome Treats?
You can find us easily at rawsometreats.com. Everything the same name. Rawsome Treats on Instagram. Rawsome Treats on Facebook. Rawsome Treats on Twitter, although I'm not really on Twitter. That's it. Easily. rawsometreats.com. Rawsome Treats on Instagram.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Wat. This has been so much fun. It's great to have you on the farm. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot, and I'm really excited to share what you're doing with our members. And it's been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you for having me. It's such an honor. I am so happy to be part of this awesome farm. And I want to shout out to everybody that I love Farm.One so much. This is so local. It's just right here. You can get anything fresher than this. If you leave your microgreen in the fridge for a long time, a week, everything still stay the same because it's so fresh.
Thank you so much.
Farm.One.
Appreciate it. All right. I'll see you later.
Bye, guys.